Hey y'all, it's Steffi and welcome back to my channel. Why am I so nervous about this? If you've been a long-time subby, then you know my story, but if you're new here, I've been doing YouTube videos on and off since like 2007, so it's been a while. I can't believe it's about to be 20 years. It's so weird. How is that even possible? A lot of my content is obviously about my own personal life journey, especially around my career. So I'm a CPA and I specialize in internal controls. But today obviously is not about any of that. Today I wanted to kick off a series with you guys, healing after going through a breakup or a divorce. Obviously I'm remarried now, so it has been a few years since all of that happened, and I've shared vlogs about me going through it while it was happening. But now that I have time and healing since then, I thought, I don't know if you guys can tell, I'm like super uncomfortable for some reason, wanted to just kick off a series to talk about it in case someone else out there goes through something similar that I went through. Even if this helps one person not feel alone in their journey, in what they're going through, that's the whole reason I wanted to share this. So I am very happy in my current marriage. It is very different than my prior marriage, and I think it's very different because of all the healing that I've done. More than anything, I just hope this is helpful for someone out there going through what you're going through. Episode 1, kind of share my story and some of the lessons that I've learned along the way, maybe some of the red flags that I chose to not do more with, because I'm different now than I was back then. Also share things, maybe mistakes or things that I could have done better on my side, because ultimately all I can control in my story and how I show up in relationships is myself, and hopefully it helps someone else out there. Just as a disclaimer, obviously this is my own experience from my point of view. In no way am I trying to speak poorly about my prior partner, but at the end of the day, facts are facts. My story is my story. My experience is my experience. One of the biggest lessons that I've learned from that experience is how much my childhood impacted the decisions that I made as an adult. Also the decisions that led me to, my prior marriage and kind of the dynamics of it. I haven't really talked about it online. Went through some traumatic experiences that obviously I would not want my children to experience. My family are part of a religion that, as many religions are, very, black and white as to what is good versus bad. Kind of gave me this mindset as I was growing into this young adult. I had a very rigid belief of what was right and what was wrong. When I met my ex, very young, immature in my own thinking and stuff like that as well, but I was still learning who I really was, what I really valued. I mean, I had a set of values, but at the time, because of the stuff that had happened in childhood and the belief system that I was under at that time, I had this deep-seated belief of I'm broken. I'm not sure I can find someone else who could understand and love someone broken like me unless they were broken themselves. That's what I thought before. I wanted someone who had gone through some hardships in their life, because I felt like I could relate to them, they could relate to me, but that they wanted to be better, because that's what I was trying to do with my life. I was trying to be better. I guess red flag number 1. I met my ex playing beer pong at a then friend's house. He was always the life of the party, could get along with anyone, very charismatic, smiley, you would love him as a friend. Dang it, he found his toy. Having a good time and being the life of a party isn't a bad thing. Can be a really good thing, and especially if that's something that you value. When we got together, being someone who did not get a lot of love and affection as a child, I got that immediately off the bat. I mean, the best way to describe it is love bombing. It's, these grand gestures, these incredible things that you say about someone, oh my gosh, you're my soulmate, my other half, how things were being posed at the time. And so it was intense. Obviously, I was with the ex for 12 years. So not everything was terrible. There were a lot of good, but a lot of bad. And I think that was the theme that I saw in my relationship, was that there were so many high highs, intense so much fun, these like grand trip experiences, field level suites, building new houses, and there was all these intense moments, but coming from these intense moments would be these really deep lows. There were so many times in my videos where I would talk about like, I just want to feel like this, you know, I want to feel happy and steady with where I was in life, versus constantly feeling like there was something better, there was a better car to have, a bigger house to have. When you meet someone who that is what they value, and then you're married to them, it is very hard to get off of that hamster wheel. So like, I was so young when I met him, and because I had these ideas of like my one true love, my soulmate, the person who's gonna complete me, it was hard to see past those blinders. There would be all these amazing things going on, and the way he would present things to people made it seem like, oh, couple goals, you know, like writing these beautiful things on Facebook on anniversaries, birthdays, Valentine's Day. But like in the background, there was a lot of hardships. I was with the ex for 12 years. I met him very young when I was 20? Yeah, I think I was 20. So much growth happened for me as a person from the age of 20 to 32. There was a lot of, you know, me learning, okay, what do I really believe in? What things do I really value as a person? And not just in what I say I value, but like what truly do I value, because that's where I'm spending my time, that's where I'm spending my energy. One thing that I learned was really honing in on what my values are, and if the person who I'm going to commit my life to, do they hold those same values? And not just in the way that they're talking, like if they say, I value family, for example, but their time and energy is being spent on other things that do not necessarily involve your family or the family that you guys are creating. Really seeing someone's words and their actions, whether they're aligning, because that is a huge red flag that, you know, my younger self, I would tell her to just keep an eye out for. If someone says that I'm going to call you when we're done at this event to see if you want to come to dinner or whatever afterwards, and they don't, and that's like a constant theme, that's when integrity, which is a core value of mine, that really would like have highlighted, hey, this person says they're going to do X, Y, or Z thing. Obviously there are times when people aren't going to get it right, but they take accountability for it. But if it becomes a pattern, then that's something to keep an eye out for. We moved in very quickly together, got my dog Juicy. One thing that I vividly remember throughout my relationship, people will say the red flags that you see in the beginning are likely the same red flags that are gonna be happening throughout your relationship and ultimately until the end of the relationship. One thing that's important to me now is, and was important to me, is respect. A relationship needs more than just love to work. You have to respect each other and show that respect whether that person is there or not. Have respect and show that respect for your relationship and for the life that you guys are building together. Not just saying that, but it actually being true, without someone else like having to look over your shoulder and kind of like police you to make sure you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. I don't want that life anymore. There were instances very early on in our relationship where I could see that he was being disrespectful towards our relationship and towards me at times, which is really dumb, but you know, like I just saying as an example, and I met him playing beer pong at a party, and then, you know, early in our dating, we had gone to another party together. We were playing beer pong with a couple of girls who I didn't know, he had known them before. And it was like a very flirtatious, kind of the exchanges, you know, kind of trash talking, but still kind of flirtatious. And it just felt disrespectful to me. I'm like his girlfriend at the time. I'm standing right next to him, and you know that you're kind of interacting with someone in a way that's not super respectful for when you're in this like committed relationship that you're saying all these like lovely things about like the love of my life and etc, etc. We had an argument afterwards, and I had to point that out to him. It's not to say that people's behaviors can't change, because like in a healthy relationship, you know, if something really bothers your partner, you'll listen to them and you'll say, you know, that really wasn't my intention. You know, I see what you're saying, and you know, I'm gonna change. I don't want you to feel that way, so I'm not gonna do that again, because I don't want you to feel hurt, disrespected, whatever the case may be, because I love you, and I, you know, as your partner, I want you to be happy. So like, that's the mindset, like that's the environment that I want to be around. We had this one conversation, and it was literally like clockwork. Every year, every couple of years, there'd be something that would happen that always, now that hindsight is 2020, I'll look back and I'm like, it's kind of the same theme. You know, it's kind of the same theme of like feigning ignorance about kind of tiptoeing along this line of being flirtatious. At least in my opinion, you shouldn't be acting in a certain way. You kind of have a door propped open. Every couple years there would be something, because at the time I was insecure, and I had good reasons to be insecure, but I also, as a young person, I was insecure. I would get like this intense feeling to like, hey, check his phone. And I would check his phone and I would find something. Every time I would have that feeling, and I hated the fact that, one, I didn't like that I was feeling this compulsion to check his phone, but I also didn't like the fact that I would do that and then I would find something. And so it was just like this vicious cycle. One, I was insecure. You know, I was still learning about myself. You know, once I started to like work and have my own career, I started seeing like my own value, becoming who I was supposed to be and stuff like that. You know, over time I learned, and I like made a commitment to myself, and at the time to the relationship, that I don't want to be that person who has to look over their shoulder or has to like dig for stuff. Like, I don't want to keep doing that. I don't want to feel like I'm having to tell someone to behave, you know, versus them just acting in a way that they say they agree with. But, you know, if they don't agree with that, then fine, just be honest and say, I don't see a problem with that. And then, you know, obviously that just means it's not meant to be. You guys aren't meant to work out together and go your separate ways. So anyways, that was a common theme in the relationship. And then the arguments that would ensue afterwards were just these like mind-bogglingly confusing. I would leave those conversations so confused, so like emotionally distraught, which was very odd. I mean, obviously I have my moments, but like just being so like mentally confused, being gaslit constantly for years, that I started to question like my own reality of things. Yeah, just even thinking about it, because it's so yucky. When something happens once, it's a mistake. Second time, a little bit of smoke, and then afterwards, it's a pattern. It's not a mistake. Conscious choice that a person makes to either do something or to not do something. Another thing, kind of hindsight, when it's just you two, you guys hanging out or spending time together, like, are you at peace? Like, does your body and your mind and your heart and everything, does everything feel safe? Does everything feel at peace with this person? Or do you feel on edge? Do you feel like there's something wrong? Which again, that's not necessarily mean that there's something wrong per se, but it does signify that, hey, maybe there's something you need to talk through. Do you have someone who you can talk through things in a safe way, especially if you're coming from like a childhood of not great experiences? Definitely take a lot of accountability. I was navigating my own belief system at the time. I was questioning, am I feeling this way because of my belief system, or am I feeling this way because it's like legitimate? One thing that's very clear to me is like to always trust your intuition. That doesn't mean that your gut reaction or what you're feeling immediately is the right answer, but it is indicating like, hey, maybe there's something more to explore here, whether that's, is there really something happening in your current environment? Is it something from your past that's kind of maybe coming up? But it just indicates that there's something that needs to be explored. And I think because I would have that feeling constantly because of whatever was going on, because I don't even know the full truth of everything, and I really don't at this point. Does it matter? Some other things that I would probably tell my younger self too: physical and emotional safety is so important. Do take responsibility for, like I said, I had such a strict belief system. Midway through that relationship, there were times when our arguments would be explosive. Part of it too, I don't believe he's a bad person. I think that everyone's prior experiences kind of mold them into who they are, and I empathize. But just because you come from a history of something doesn't mean that it needs to be perpetuated. You know, the whole idea of like breaking generational curses. What's crazy to me is like my biological dad, the person who he was when my mom divorced him was the same person who I found in my ex, which is very crazy. And I hate the cliche of it, but because I had this belief of like finding my soulmate, my other half, the person who completes me, it came from a place of like, that means that I'm not whole and complete on my own. I am now, I know that. But back then I didn't know that about myself. This idea of a soulmate, which is like this once in a lifetime person, the person who you're meant to be with and things like that, when bad things would happen, it would make me question like, okay, so this is what love is? If this is how the person who loves me more than anyone else in this world is treating me, I guess that's love. Is that what I deserve? Is it because I've done something wrong that I deserve whatever had happened? I wish I could tell her that that's not love. I do believe that there was love in that relationship, but love is kind, it's patient, it's where you can be vulnerable, you can lay out those ugly, yucky parts of you, and you know, someone will be there to like accept that. Unconditional love does not mean you can unconditionally test that the person who loves you will put up with your bullshit, honey, because that's not what love is, okay? But like I said, marriage, a relationship, needs more than just love to blossom and to thrive. Glad for kind of like the divorce and everything that had happened, because it allowed me to question the things that I was raised with, the stuff that doesn't serve me. I think another thing too is I've kind of mentioned like feeling like I was having to basically like police someone, or like kind of be over their shoulder to be like, okay, act right, you know what I mean? To keep someone on the straight and narrow. Like, I don't like that. I don't want to have to kind of be someone's mother or their moral compass. I want someone to have their own moral compass baked, whatever that is, and to be honest about what that is, and either it's gonna match mine and that's gonna work out. Each of yours are slightly different, but you guys are inspired by each other, and you somehow, that, you know, makes you both stronger to like be even better than each of you are. Or you can just say that like we're just not on the same level, that it's just going to create like this hard life. And that's what happened. Was I had a set of morals, and I still do, you know, my standard, and it's not fair to hold someone to that standard, because they won't ever be able to meet that if that's not ingrained in them. Number one, if they themselves don't believe that they can meet that standard, or if they don't want to or choose not to, you know what I mean? Basically putting yourself in situations where you have to be questioned, like your character is being questioned because you put yourself in a situation that's not great. These situations, if you're single, is not a big deal, but when you're married, just don't act a certain way when you're married versus when you're single. Happening once, okay. If it happens again, like, okay, this is kind of weird. Continuously happens every other year, every couple of years. Looking back, like, I wish that we had maybe ended things sooner, much sooner, even before the marriage, even before the wedding actually happened, because we just were obviously not on the same playing field. You know, the things that were important to me were different than what was important to him. And like I said, I'm not saying he's a bad person and I'm a righteous person, because that's not it. We're just two very different people who did not play by the same playbook. Like, you start not wanting to bring things up because you don't want it to be an argument, and it just creates like an environment of like not having transparency, and that's so important, you know, just to the emotional safety and just the feeling of safety in your relationship. And that obviously impacts intimacy. It's embarrassing, but I'll still share it because in case anyone else has gone through it or is going through it, you know, you're not alone. There was definitely a very long period of a lack of intimacy, you know, years of it. I think that's another kind of red flag, I would say. Intimacy, whether that's, you know, home run intimacy or even just intimacy of like kissing, hugging, cuddling, stuff like that being very far and few between. And especially because like the lack of feeling safe with the person, whether emotionally or physically, maybe you've been disrespected, and like the forgiveness part, like the repairing after arguments and stuff like that is an important tool. I think now that I'm in a healthy relationship, like being able to have conflict in a constructive way and repairing your relationship after something has happened are important tools. You know, like long-lasting relationships aren't just perfect relationships. Like it takes work. You have two people coming with their own, you know, life experiences. Conflict is natural. So, but being able to repair after that is so important. Feeling disrespected through, you know, the things that I was kind of talking about before. And not really feeling like I was being enjoyed for like the person that I was. The topic of going to, you know, marriage counseling and whatnot, I brought that up multiple times, and it was like, you know, the saying of like, if we need marriage counseling, we're gonna need more than that. You know, that saying like, sir, I know, why are you getting turned up from mamas? Oh, I love you. I think that a lack of intimacy, like it brought so much shame, especially during my healing journey. I was never unfaithful, despite this very, very, very long period. It left like emotional wounds of like not feeling good enough, not feeling attractive, like there's something wrong with me. There's all this shame wrapped up into that. And I just think that intimacy and how close you feel to your partner, although that is not the most important thing in your life, also that can be impacted obviously by physical things that are happening, age, hormones, etc., emotional. Love bug. Okay, we're gonna get off this topic here in a second, okay? I'm just sharing that because I know how ashamed I was about it, and that it's very possible that it's just an indicator that maybe more help is needed outside of just you two. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with counseling. I think that seeking help for your relationship, whatever means that is, through your religion, life coach, etc., I think if you really value a relationship, everyone needs help every now and then. Ultimately, as you can kind of hear, very much not on the same page when it came to values, where we wanted to spend our time and energy, like what was truly important to us, always improving, but to be also happy with where I was in life. And it was like, it was never good enough. No matter how much more money I made, how much more I spent on our life, because I did make more money, it was just never good enough. And then on top of that, being disrespected because of being too friendly with other females, even sometimes other females who were married. The same thing, like I said, the initial red flag of like being too like weirdly flirtatious, friendly with someone of the opposite sex. That's basically what ended up happening to finally end the relationship. He ultimately was the one who no longer wanted to be in the relationship because he probably found something better, different, whatever than me, which is fine. For me, it's like, okay, once the door is closed, the door is closed. And I think ultimately it boiled down to, I was so young when I made the decision to commit to someone, because when I committed wholeheartedly. Felt like it was a reflection of me, that I was being treated a certain way. Like if I was just a better wife, if I wasn't so rigid in my thinking, if I just loved him a little bit more, and showed that to him, if I gave more, just spent more money on the stuff that he wanted, if I didn't push back on some of the stuff that he wanted to do, like if I was just better, he would treat me better, and I would pour myself into just trying to always just appease him, that nothing changed, because at the end of the day, the only person that I could control was myself, and the only person he could control was himself. And you have to find someone who is going to choose to be truthful about who they are. Assess, okay, if this is who I have for the rest of my life and nothing changes, will I be content with this person for the rest of my life? Either take someone as they are, and if they improve, great. If they change things about themselves, great. But can you really live with this person and be happy in your life and content, and it not feel like, you know, kind of this friction in your soul? You know, that's really the question you have to ask yourself. Not just, hey, do I feel like this intense butterflies? Do I feel, you know, like this person completes me, like these really intense emotions? Decision to spend your life with someone needs to be outside of all of that. Like, you need to be able to see, okay, how does this person handle conflict? Are they a person of their word? When they say they're going to do something, do they do it? If they say they believe a certain way, are their actions following the way that they say they believe? No one's perfect. Everyone is going to make mistakes, and that is just part of life. But if you start seeing patterns in something, then it's time to assess. Something else I would tell myself is, a relationship doesn't work. It's not a reflection of you or your worth. If you're deserving of a partner, if you'll ever find someone, that's not the case. Are people out there who are either going to be a good fit for you or they're not? The only thing that will show that is time. You know, time and experience with that person. And ultimately, you just have to keep the blinders off. Just keep the blinders off, see them for who they are, see them for what they do. Obviously, show appreciation for them. Work on yourself as a person, figure out what makes you happy. Let all of your decisions in life kind of follow that. And it's not failing. At the end of the day, relationships do take work. That I've been through my healing journey. Obviously, you guys know I'm remarried, and my husband is so different, and in such a good way for me. Maybe not for some people who've been part of like my previous chapters, but like for me, he is exactly who I've been wanting to find. And because I'm a little bit jaded too, life is full of choices, and I think that was the other thing is, like, you can say that you believe in certain things, that these are your values, that this is the standard you hold yourself to, but it is going to be tested. And it is your everyday choices that determine who you are as a person. You can say that, hey, I'm a loyal person, you know, I would never cheat on my spouse. You get a DM from someone, it's your choice to either respond to that DM or not. Person sending me photos of themselves, even if it's just like a little selfie, I'll send one back, you know, like that's a choice that you're making to kind of fall down a little hole that you don't want to go down, honey. Another thing that actually a counselor had told me as I was going through things and trying to get help, I had mentioned to the counselor, hey, I've asked my ex at the time to do counseling with me, and he said, no, I've asked for years. And she said, well, that's your answer. Then I was like, oh damn, that is the answer. Because ultimately, if you really want to make your relationship work, it is two people having to put in the work. If it's only one of you guys who are wanting that and the other one who doesn't, like, that's your answer. And it was just like in a holding pattern for a little bit. And it was just a holding pattern of like being treated like shit. I know it's like sounds cliche, but I finally chose me, and that's how I ended up getting a divorce. I know that might sound selfish, but the people who are going to say it sounds selfish are people who are benefiting from you not making any choices. They are benefiting from you staying in the same place, and if that place is a place of unhappiness and that's where they would rather you stay, then those aren't the right people for you. Those were the lessons that I learned through that relationship in kind of a long, windy way. Things I would tell my younger self, and just some red flags to look out for. Again, it takes two people to really want to work at that, and I truly hope that if you're in that boat, that you guys choose each other and you choose to move forward and repair whatever needs to be repaired, and like, that is a beautiful legacy. But if that's not the right path for you, just know that that's okay. Like, that's an okay answer too, and I promise you it's better to be alone than to be with someone who makes you feel lonely. It's better to be alone than for you to make someone else feel bad about themselves because they just can't live up to a standard that you need in your life. If it's something like a moral or a core value that you cannot be kind of flexible with, then it's the most loving thing to do to kind of split ways. That way they can find their happiness and you can find yours, whether that's with someone else or by yourself, because like I said, it is so much better to be alone than to be with someone who makes you feel lonely. I know it's kind of a bummer topic, but like I said, I really do hope that this video helps someone out there. I hope that it finds you, and I hope you know that you're not alone. Whatever it is that you're going through, I promise you there are brighter days ahead. So yeah, next video I'll talk about kind of like the healing journey, and yeah, we'll just start this series. And so if there's anything in particular you want me to talk about, then feel free to leave a comment. Thank you guys for giving me a safe space to share my story. I really do hope that it helps someone out there. Please take care of yourself in whatever season you're going through right now. Grow through what you go through. You are a diamond, honey. Pressure creates diamonds. And I will see y'all in my next video. Grab a beverage, because we about to spill the tea, honey. It has organic black tea in it. And Brutus, oh gosh. Hun, can you please love? Her, my love. Okay, so there's obviously nothing wrong. Let me go. Okay, that one at least doesn't make noise. Think about it, and it's like, you know, every couple years. Brutus, what you doing? But that door was closed, baby.